Good evening, everyone. This is Wednesday, April 13th. We will start our meeting with the flag salute. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. There was no closed session this evening. There are no emergency additions or modifications. So if I could have a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
I'll move.
I'll second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
That passes 4-0. Michael is ill today, so he will be absent. Approval of the minutes. We're going to have to take these separately because some people were missing certain meetings. So a motion for February 9th meeting minute approval.
I'll move to approve.
I think
Which one?
you were not at the,
Yeah.
so you can't vote on this one.
Yeah, I thought we already voted on this one though.
We didn't.
No. Because at the last meeting, we postponed it because there
That
was
was it.
only 3 of you here. So that was a motion by Shelley, seconded by Rebecca. All those in favor?
Aye.
3 ayes and 1 abstention.
I think on the March 19th that you and Rebecca were gone, and since Michael's not here, you may have to push. that
Okay,
off.
yes, that's correct. We'll have to postpone the
Must be
March
good with
9th meeting because we don't have a quorum of those who were in attendance. I'll move to approve the minutes from March 15th.
I'll second.
In seconds, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That passes 4-0, or yes, 4-0. So we are postponing the March 9th. Great, we move on to our recognition, our value awards. Our first recognition this evening is from Mira Monty. It's for Brooklyn Coombs on inclusion, and she's going to be introduced by her teacher, Tina Mahler.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tina Mahler. Thank you for having me this evening. I'm so honored to be able to recognize my student, Brooklyn Coombs, tonight. When I first met Brooklyn last year, it was as a TK student. And although she was a distance learning student, I knew from that experience alone that she was a pretty special little human. So it was no surprise to me when she came back this year for kindergarten, and I got to be able to know her more personally and really experience the love, kindness, and inclusivity that she exuberates daily. Brooklyn is inclusive to all of the students that she's around on a daily basis. Her boundaries do not end inside of our kindergarten classroom. She is aware of all of the students in the TK class. She's aware of the other students in the kindergarten class. And when she's out on that kindergarten playground, she's always doing her very best. Whether they are her best friend or her classmate, she treats all of the students equally. And my most favorite memory was one morning when Brooklyn came to school and there was a student that was visibly upset and crying in a corner, crouched, that did not have a jacket. Well, all of the teachers and students tried to include the student and get them to, stop crying. And Brooklyn went over to this particular student and she talked to them and she put her arm around them and she literally took the coat off of her own back and she wrapped it around the student. And when I asked her, Brooklyn, why did you take off your jacket? Weren't you cold also? She said, Mrs. Mahler, it's okay. I may be cold for a little while, but maybe my friend will feel better and stop crying. So it's okay if I'm cold. Now, I don't usually cry in front of my students, but I really cried this day because it was just such a beautiful, true example of the selflessness of this pure act of kindness. So Brooklyn is an absolute joy to have in my class, and it's my privilege to be her teacher. So congratulations, Brooklyn, on this well-deserved award.
Hey. Congratulations.
Brooklyn, you're a recipient of our inclusion award. So you will receive, right? Am I correct? You will receive a $50 gift card and you have a opportunity to choose a nonprofit that you would like to donate another $50 to. Do you have any thoughts on where you might like to donate some money? Where?
The Humane Society.
Oh, perfect.
Yes, wonderful. They'll be very happy to receive that. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Brooklyn.
Thank you, Melissa. and
So
Jay.
proud of you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for bringing her to
Thank
our
you.
school.
Absolutely.
Our second recognition for this evening is from our Chaparral High School student, David Gomez. He's going to be introduced by Craig Walker.
I don't know that we see David on now.
Is
It's
David
Craig
on?
Andrews.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Oops, you're muted there, Craig.
I don't see our student here, unfortunately. I did check with him. I just made 2 calls right now to mom and dad. I'll have to leave 2 messages, so I'm hoping that he's gonna just pop in pretty soon.
Okay, maybe we'll do our volunteer recognition, and if he comes in the meantime, then we can go back. Otherwise, we'll talk about him without him being here. Our
That works.
volunteer of the month is from Matilha Middle School, Tani McCracken.
Hi, good evening.
Hi,
I'm Kelly Stone. I'm the principal at Matilha Middle School. And I don't know if Tanya, Mrs. McCracken, has been able to join us. She indicated that she may have other challenges with her schedule this evening. So, but Mrs. McCracken is one of our new parents this year. She is a 6th grade parent. She is the proud mom of Lucas, who is one of our most involved 6th graders. Lucas is actually in drumline and robotics and is an ambassador and is involved in all kinds of things. And I can see very clearly where Lucas gets his motivation to be engaged and part of things. And that is from his mom, Tanya. And she has been so gracious to volunteer her time this year. She especially gave us an enormous amount of time and talent in the last couple of weeks when we hosted our 5th grade visitors, and Mrs. McCracken helped assist our ambassador group with their preparation and then recorded the entire activity for us on video and photography and provided that to us so that we have a wonderful record of that event and the visitors that came to Matilha on that day. So we're very happy to have parents like Tanya and students like Lucas here on campus who are willing to give of their time and talent to make Matilha a great place to be. So thank you, Mrs. McCracken. You see this later on.
I don't believe David has joined us yet, but that's okay. Andrew can maybe watch on YouTube later to hear his praises. Did we get you? Yep.
You're actually not on mute. It looks like his connection is. So, Mr. Andrews, it looks like you're still connecting to audio right now. So we can't hear you quite yet, but you're not on mute either. It just says you're connecting. We heard you earlier. No.
Did we actually hear him earlier?
No,
Because we
he was
heard
not
Javier
here.
earlier.
Yeah.
It was threw me off entirely.
Javier, do you have anything? Would you like to?
Craig, sometimes if you turn off the video, your audio might connect.
He's going to cancel the spotlight videos. All right.
Well, you might want to leave the Zoom room and come back again, and we'll see if that works. In the meantime, I'll check and see, do we have any public comments this evening? No, no public comments. Our Student Advisory Council will not be joining us this evening either. We have our 2 union presidents here. Chuck, did you want to speak this evening?
Thank you.
Good to see you.
It's been a day or two.
Mhm.
I had a wrestling match with the machine and neither one of us won. So anyhow, I'm back. So as I speak to the individuals in the field of work, everybody's grateful that they have work. And that's been one of our goals for the district, to provide the needs of the employees. That say the challenges within our lifespan right now, the compression of COVID, what have you, we're all seeing a lot of transitions, and people seem to be short with each other. And there's a lot of grace that's been shown here in the district, which I always say that our work environment is a student's learning environment, and I'm grateful that we have that here because that shows. Our recent get together with negotiations was off to a good start. I can say that. Health has been an issue for people, as we've discussed already this evening. So we've had a slow start on that. We'll be meeting again next week on the 18th. So I am concerned. We've had the discussions, Dr. Morris and I, for several years now over this whole COVID and the board and the conditions, and to actually experience these things is a whole lot different than talking about them. And as we have seen throughout the district, it does puzzle me through none of us here designed the kitchen at Matillahoff. But one of those things I discussed is by sixth grade, I thought we would learn to wash our hands before we ate. There's that big, beautiful kitchen outside the sink outside the cafeteria that nobody uses. And of all times, right, when health is an issue, I just thought what a great learning opportunity. Because so many people have been sick at different times through this. But to no fault of the district, we've done everything that we can, and Classified acknowledges that. So I just want to encourage the individuals, as you have shown through the district, with a positive attitude and provisions, that individually we come together to make the team. So thank you.
Thanks, Chuck.
I forgot to say thank you to our other volunteers and award winners. If you all are interested in watching from home, you're welcome to leave the Zoom. You don't have to stay on the Zoom program. So congratulations again to Brooklyn and Tanya and those teachers and staff that were representing them this evening. Did we get Craig back with any discussion?
I have his notes on my end. If you guys don't mind, I can go ahead and read them off regarding David. I just got a text from mom saying that she told him to log into the Zoom, but I'm not really sure he's actually going to do it or not. So, but if that's okay, can I just jump in right now?
Thank you.
Do you want to try one more time though, Craig, and see? I thought I saw that you had connected. Do you want to try one more time, Craig? Nope. Okay, back to Javier.
Okay, Javier, thank you. And you're
All right,
speaking.
Brian, so here's the notes from Mr. Andrews. Mr. Andrews is David's advisor. So Mr. Andrews says, I have known David Gomez since having him in my advisory class for the last 2 years. And throughout all the time, here are a few things about David. David is a keen observer of his surroundings and fellows. In conversation with me, David has always spoken positively of others, never negatively. He strives to see the good qualities in others and is a role model for being non-judgmental. Many, many times I have witnessed David's peers being very persistent with his schoolwork. He's always working on his own pace. David has remained persistent and never gives up. As a result, he's on track to graduate on time this year. David has also quite a sense of humor, and over time, his peers have learned to respect his strength of character. I believe they all look up to him. He has greatly improved his attendance and punctuality this year, showing real growth. Above all, I have never witnessed David, and this is Mr. Andrews and myself too, I have never witnessed David being out of control, rude, loud, or vulgar. He is the opposite of these. He's very polite, very quiet, and very classy. In short, he manifests precisely the qualities of character that students and staff of Chapra recognize as exemplary. So there you have it for David Gomez. And I know that he picked nonprofit because I checked in with him this morning. But I don't remember which nonprofit he picked, but I know he has one. Okay. So there you have it.
Good to hear. Thank you. Congratulations, David. Thank you, Mr. Andrews and Javier. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Avi.
Now moving on to OFT. Jake, did you wish to speak this evening?
I don't have any comments.
Okay, no comments this evening. Board member reports? Anyone? No? Okay.
Oh, I actually, all of a
Okay.
sudden at the very last minute, I just wanted to report that I was elected to the delegate assembly for the Ventura County CSBA. And so I will be going to Sacramento in May to represent our school district.
Wow. Fabulous. Thank you so much. I know we have a superintendent's report. We are at 5.5 on the agenda.
Sure. Oh, I always do that. I always hit share and I mean to hit slideshow. Okay, so our superintendent's report tonight, I just want to share with you a few highlights, some things that have been going on in the district. As you heard Ms. Stone mention, we had our 5th grade visit to Matilaha Middle School. Last month, we had our incoming freshman visit to Nordhoff. So we are working on our roll-up visits for all of our students, which have been going very well and are very exciting. And it's great to see kids on campus again. We're also preparing for our spring showcases, which are coming up next month at every site. I would have left this out, but Linda would like me to share. I gave a little presentation about beekeeping to some 4th grade students at Topa Topa. It was pouring rain and it was a day, but it was really fun to be back in a classroom with kids. And there's a video, but we've not yet figured out how to show sound on Zoom. So you can watch it online. And I think there's also some visiting critters from the museum that were in the room, which I think is kind of funny that they were.
I was going to say, whenever you and Kyle, the raccoon, do
Yes.
PowerPoint, I love it.
It's pretty, so we had 2 classes combined together. Part of the reason that we did it is because they just replanted the garden in front of Topa Topa with native plants, and they took out all of the shrubs and they planted some pollinators there. So it was a tie-in with the revealing of that garden. We have been working on staff wellness. This is something when we surveyed staff at the beginning of the year, they were excited for opportunities for wellness. And so one thing that we've been able to provide are these Thrive hikes. So Tessa McGill is a certified counselor, MFT, and we take our staff out and they have an opportunity to go hiking and to connect with each other on wellness opportunities. We actually have one coming up tomorrow afternoon. Just a chance for people to be together and then kind of have some therapeutic discussions. Where we had a new student working in our farmers market booth last week, selling some art. This is her very first customer that she sold an art piece to. We're excited about that. A few upcoming events. We have our college and career fair. This is an old picture from 2019. You might recognize your good friend, Dr. Zenda Abbott there. We are excited to have that back on campus. I think we have more than 20 different organizations who are there to talk to students. All juniors get to go. Freshmen and sophomore can sign up individually in the afternoon. We have a town hall for our San Antonio Leads Academy coming up next week, a parent town hall, so they can ask questions about where we're going and we can get feedback and input on that as we move forward with developing that TK8 school. Coffee and conversation. This is an informal time where parents or community members can chat with me at the farmers market. Coming up this Thursday, I guess tomorrow. I will not be going on the Thrive hike because I'll be here at the farmers market. We are working really diligently on our summer school program. Again, this is our 3rd year of our free summer school program. We have at elementary in K through 5, we have our SOAR camp, which is science, outdoor learning, arts, and reading, where students go through kind of a rotation of those different areas. And then for middle school and high school, we have different academic classes, both for credit recovery and go ahead programs. And then we also have some enrichment classes. We actually, I think, just added a new one today. So we're finalizing this and we've sent this out to families and we'll continue with promotion and advertisement. So we're excited. We have some new ones this year, mariachi, 1 week business and entrepreneurship class, gardening, sci-fi through games. We're excited about that one. So continuing to add enrichment programs for the summer for kids. We are partnering with the Ojai Community Farmers Market and Tierra del Sol. And then last night, the city approved some funding for our Earth Day event at the Community Farmers Market. So it's our first annual, which we're very excited about. We are running some kids booths, some solar activities like a solar oven where the kids go and buy vegetables and then come and cook them in the solar oven. Some solar demonstrations that morning. Snyder Electric, who's working with us district-wide on our solar program, they are coming out in the morning to Matilaha. They're going to build and design solar cars for students to race. They have a little solar grid and that runs some blenders, and students are going to make some smoothies and a couple of other solar activities. So we're excited to.
So is that tomorrow or a week from tomorrow?
It is actually a week from tomorrow. So it says this Thursday, but this is the banner that's going up out front right this week. So, but it's actually April 21st. Spring musical. We are very excited that we were able to have the spring musical this year. That is coming up May 6th through 8th. Our students and our staff have been working really hard on that. So make sure you mark your calendars for that. It's a good Mother's Day event if you would like to attend. We have our local author series. One happened yesterday, and we have upcoming on April 27th and May 10th. We're very excited to have real life authors for kids to talk to at Nordhoff.
I'll just say I went last night and it was fabulous. Very
Yes.
funny, very exciting. The kids were engaged. It was great.
Some ongoing activities, community and family engagement, our roadmap that we send out every single month. This month honoring Asian Pacific American Heritage Month with some potential activities for families. Our Monday Minute, which we continue to publish every Monday, except for when we're on break. Even if I have to do it in my car, we have not missed one yet, but we have over 6,000 unique views since August. So that is a good communication tool. And we are the only ones who publish it bilingually. So we have one in English and one in Spanish every single week. Thank you to Hazel for recording that. Sometimes we're like competing when we're recording them in the office. We an update on grants. So the two in red are ones that we just found out about in the last couple of weeks. We have a National School Lunch Program Equipment Assistance Grant, which was a little over $70,000. Those were very competitive. So it was great that we received that grant for some additional kitchen equipment. And emergency connectivity funds. We were in the second round. So this helps to pay for Chromebooks district-wide and excitingly home internet for low-income families.
Wow, that's great.
So we just received that and we're working on getting that up and running. Still have one outstanding grant for the USDA Farm to School that we submitted, and we should hear back soon. And then there's a couple of applications that are sitting on my desk to look at. More information later on those. Some other engagement that we've been working on, our Citizens Oversight Committee. This is us swearing in the new committee for this year on Zoom. We continue to meet with our pool committee, school site council meetings. I believe that we had Miramonte today and Matilaha coming up. And then we had 2 weeks ago, right before break, our Lcap community engagement meeting. So we have a series of 4 different meetings. This one was held in the auditorium, or was it here in the boardroom? In the boardroom, sorry. And we had community was able to come. I think we had 22 participants who were able to give us feedback on some of our upcoming goals and activities that we will use in crafting the plan that will come back to you in the next couple of months. Our standing ovations for elementary, we can see we have a number for San Antonio and then also for Summit this month. We're very excited to see our Summit teachers showing up there. Brenda Hill, Ann Gard, Paul, and Natasha all work at Summit. And then for secondary, we have Marco Juarez. I'll read his next one to you. He's our new librarian at Matilaha. and started in COVID, and we've been redoing the library. So it's been a, maybe not the dream librarian job yet, but it's going to be a beautiful facility as soon as we have it finished. But he's done a great job of pitching in and being in a maybe not perfect space in a little classroom, but he's still making it work for kids, which is great. And let's see, so I was just telling you about Marco, which is the bottom one there. It has a great smile, great attitude, and even in the temporary library, breathing fresh life into our book options. So excited to see that. So you'll see between that and our author series that we're really working on kids to get them reading and engaged with literacy. And then another one, just a pull-out quote there for Ms. Sill. And that concludes the superintendent's report for this evening.
Thank you. Presentations, we are talking about field and community access. I think, Kevin, you asked for some information on that, and this is a presentation on that.
This is, one second, order of operations here. This is a work in progress. We are, as we come back from COVID, if you remember when COVID first started, we really limited access to the facilities. That was in part of our memorandum of understanding. And so as we're coming back, we're kind of retooling, looking at a number of things. And so this is kind of part one. Part two will be coming back to you in a future meeting. But in general, we went through every single site. We have basically kind of two buckets. Some fields are open to the community at all times, like for example, Nordhoff and Matillaha, at all times when students aren't present. So that is one of there's a few dynamics here that we're always trying to navigate. And one is having community members on the fields at the same time that our students are using them for athletic practices. And sometimes there's a little bit of a conflict there. If there are dogs running around, for example, while we're having soccer practice. So we try and avoid those conflicts, and we are happy to have the community on our fields when students aren't actively present or practicing. And so, we've talked about different signage. It's a little bit difficult because the times and hours change all the time. So in the summer, it looks different than it does, or spring break or winter break, or, so it's really when students aren't present is when it's available for the community. We also are constantly looking at ways to manage, particularly fields where there are dogs, to manage pet waste. And when dog poop is not picked up and then kids are running and that becomes a problem. And honestly, that's part of why some of the fields are not open all of the time, is because we haven't been able to manage that balance between community access and kind of responsible dog access on the fields. Also, as we have outside groups that are using our fields, AYSO or baseball, trying to manage also restroom access. So our restrooms are not open, and we don't have custodial staff that's working evenings at those sites to clean bathrooms after use. And on occasion, when they've been open in the past, they're not always well taken care of. So trying to manage things like cigarette butts on the playground in the morning when we come to school, or the toilets being clogged, or the toilets having, being full of paper towels or whatever. So trying to manage that. What we are working on right now with baseball is they've actually brought in porta potties for the season that are locked. They only have access to them. Their coaches unlock them. They can use those when they're using the fields, and then they'll remove them at the end of the season. So we're trying to find creative solutions to allow facility use, but also to not negatively impact our own use. One of the things when I first started is I had some folks in community neighbors saying, you should be using all the money that you get from renting the fields to make improvements. And I just want to be really clear that right now we don't charge outside groups for utilizing our fields. So everything is paid for by us, all the field maintenance. So it's not like there's, money that we're bringing in that we would use to offset expenses. It's just free community access at this.
And that, just so you know, that came up before you were
Mhm.
superintendent here, because it was really so minimal what we were earning, and it just seemed, almost more work to do that than it was worth. And, then we made a decision that it was going to be nonprofits could use it for free. But if you were like the Matilda Auditorium, if you were, a band just giving a concert, you would have to pay a rental fee. And I know it got really confusing, but the point behind it was, it's community, we felt community tax dollars are what supports the district. So if we can open it for use, that's good. But I think now we're learning also those other things. How do you maintain bathrooms, and what happens when people are using it as a dog park rather than a baseball field? And
So we're trying to figure out the balance. So this is where we are now. We'll be bringing a plan to you in the future to kind of look at some of these items. But this is where we are right now. At the district office, this quad area is open for reservation through the facility use process. For example, the farmers market has a temporary use permit that's renewed every 6 months to utilize this area here. In terms of our buildings, all of our classrooms really could technically be rented. That doesn't happen very frequently. Kind of our big three are Matilah Theater, Nordhoff Library, or potentially the Nordhoff Gym, and then the district office auditorium. And if you haven't had a chance to pop over and look at it, we just repainted on the inside. I think I showed it in a prior slideshow, maybe last month. We're working on redoing the floors, as we are now looking at some renovations to this site. And we're looking at HVAC for some places on this campus that don't have air conditioning. We'll likely look at air conditioning in that auditorium there, which will also make it more usable outside of the cooler months when it's currently able to be used. Gets fairly warm in there. So
or at 6 a.m. for a pancake breakfast.
Right. Well, we would actually utilize it a lot more frequently, but it's hot, and it's currently not available for use during the school day when it is the Chaparral Gym. And so our next steps, we are working on a creation of a facility use handbook and process. I'm about 3/4 of the way through that, but there's been some other pressing issues that have taken priority over that, and utilizing models that have been created by other districts. We do need to revise our facility use contract. Our JPA was just working on an issue with us, our Joint Powers Association Authority. We were just looking at the contract, and so we're going to need to revise that in a number of ways, just so that we're covered appropriately in terms of risk management. And then also working on a facilities management plan, particularly around the Matilah Theater and maybe some other spaces. So we have some work to do in this area, but in general, most sites are open for community access. Some of them only through a formal process, but almost all of them are open at some point.
So I asked for it, and Jane, you're right. I actually, to show how long ago that was, I believe one of the people that came to me when I was running on the subject of facilities use was Tina Bruman, who was running a Girl Scout troop, maybe. Vaguely feel like that was, and she was being charged, and I agree that it wasn't appropriate. So mostly I was interested in the fields. So, I mean, I think Miners Oaks is a good example of a great resource in a town that has a lot of kids around it. And if we could find a way to make those fields available for kids, the playgrounds available for kids in the neighborhood, I just think it's great. And at this point, I'm not sure if there's I know the issue you're talking about with the dogs, but maybe there are ways to almost identify people that might become sort of trustees, if you will, or involved in sort of maintaining some discipline among the dog owners that bring them. I remember when we lived next to Topa, people would bring their dogs out to Topa, and then there was just a terrible problem with people just not cleaning up poop. But overall, I mean, this is one of those, as a board member, would love to have some influence and be able to help the district make the fields more available, because I think fields are, we definitely want our kids outside, and there are lots of places where these fields are just perfectly located to provide a great, place for a kid to go for an hour or two before dinner.
One of the things at Miners Oaks, as we work on the library that will be going in there, the community library, and then potentially some other long-term plans there, we'll be doing the Miners Oaks field, I believe this summer it's slated. We've been working on if there are grants or opportunities to partner with the county on making that a park. There's been a couple of options, nothing that we've been able to pull off yet. But that's something that we would really like to do, particularly with that field, is make that a community access park. We also have been working with the OVLC because it's right there on the meadows. We partnered with them on a grant they were putting in a grant for maybe a bridge, and they got extra points if there was like a water fountain. And so we were partnering with them maybe on that. So we're working on some ideas there. We just haven't yet found the right funding mechanism to partner with other agencies there. But what we would really love to have is some restrooms that are non-Ojai unified, because right now our restrooms are all kind of in the interior of campus, but we'd like to have some restrooms that are out closer to the field that could be accessible to the community, which would really make that field a lot more able to be used outside of school hours by folks.
Any other thoughts or?
This is very different, I think, from how any other, and I know we're a lot smaller, but most other districts charge for use. Most of them use, in our county, the majority of them use Facilitron, which is a system that allows you to rent spaces so you don't have multiple people in the same space at one time. And there is a way in there, if you're a nonprofit, you can go and put your information in, and then the district could decide, like, either you're getting a very discounted rate or you're getting a free rate, depending on whatever the district sets. The use, like being somebody who oversees facility, the use of facilities does cost the district money. I'm not opposed to it at all, but we do pay for it, whether it's through custodial or through our grounds, or we're paying on the back end. I agree that I think the community use is a huge, the school should be the heart of the community. And I think sometimes when it's out on a system and they see all the places they could possibly rent, the amount of rentals increases, right? Like, because Facilitron has pictures and like, what kind of classroom are you looking for? Are you looking for this? Are you looking for that? And then you get all these other organizations who would have never thought, like, oh, there's schools everywhere. I could use one of those to offer my class or to do whatever it is they want to do. So I know it's not the culture of our district to charge right now, but I think it's important to realize that we do pay for it. We are paying for the use of those facilities for our community.
We do charge for indoor spaces.
That's good.
We also have added very intentionally some, like when we redid the basketball courts in Matilaha, we made them so that they were nice enough for robust community use. We put in the disc golf course at Matilaha. Obviously at Nordoff, we're working on the pool, which will have community access of some kind to be determined. So we are consciously building our spaces, even having the farmers market here at the district office. So we're consciously working on opportunities for the community to connect. And in terms of a system that allows us to collect those fees and to be a little more efficient in our scheduling, that's something that we are also working on. So in that kind of phase 2 plan that I was showing you, with the facilities use handbook, the updated contract, there may be a technology solution that allows us to assist with that scheduling in an easier manner.
Because I hear a lot, oh, like from people in Ventura, like I'll just go to Ojai, don't worry about it.
Oh,
they're
because we're free?
Yeah.
Oh,
So they'll come up here for practices or they'll come up here for whatever. So you got to realize it's not just our community that's using.
wow.
the
I didn't
spaces.
know that. That's interesting.
And
I
I
say
would
good.
say the west side of the county knows.
Huh.
And, you know, like, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. And it's not, you know, like, I would say the schools who rent out their spaces don't stop people from using, like, a lot of the schools are open. You know, so a lot of people still go to the schools and use the
It's
schools.
just organized.
Yes, it's like organized sports or,
Right.
yeah.
Well,
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and if we, for example, AYSO, I would feel really, it would be difficult for me to charge them when we're requiring them to bring their own bathrooms with them. Like, I feel like we're not giving them full access, so.
Right, and that's part of it too, is like if they reserve spaces like with us in Ventura, then they can reserve a bathroom and we will make sure the bathroom's open and clean and we would have somebody there to tend to all of that. You know, it's different. Like, I get that the bathrooms are more on the interior of the schools, but
We also having staffing issues,
mhm.
right? At this point, it would take away from our ability to kind of clean our core classroom facilities, which has been a struggle this year, both from, you know, understaffing and intense need. But if you rent, for example, the theater or the auditorium, that's something that and you are paying. We also, part of what we'll be coming back to is also a key management plan. So when we have keys, sometimes they get everywhere and there's a lot of copies of keys. And so trying to both encourage access and control access is kind of this polarity that we're dealing with. And so we have some new strategies this year for managing keys and who has them and how they come back to us and what they open and what they don't open. But, you know, there have been instances where some keys that you might use to get into a gate, for example, could open classrooms. And so that's not something, but then there's a cost to rekeying. And so, you know, we are trying to be very thoughtful as we move forward, which is why it's taking a while.
It's interesting though, Rebecca, what you said about, you know, people seeing, oh, I could use that classroom for my yoga or whatever. You know, when there's people who are really pushing for some kind of an art institute on this property. And, you know, I say the same thing. It's like, well, we have a lot of spaces that you could use for that. If you want to create that, doesn't necessarily have to be on this campus.
Mhm.
It could exist in our existing facilities. So.
Absolutely.
Did want to say the basketball courts and the decision to put in those extra high quality backboards and rims, massive hit.
Yeah.
And we need hits like that. That's I've never encountered a person that doesn't think that's had a huge positive impact on the whole community. I mean, there are times when that's just full.
I also added just recently that
Yeah,
It's always being used.
we just
Sorry.
added the new soccer goals too, the new movable.
noticed those,
Tom drove
yes.
by and he was like, oh my gosh, you have nets in your soccer goals. Like, it's so fancy. Which I thought was kind of funny. I was like, they don't have nets other places? He's like, no.
Those are great. Yeah.
So, and they're movable. We're trying to figure out the relationship between the disc golf, the basketball, and the soccer is something that we're
Man, I saw lacrosse out there
and
too.
lacrosse again. So you wouldn't potentially be using the disc golf course when students are present on the fields for practice. But then again, you know, whose job is it to monitor that? Do we expect the coaches to go kick people off of the fields if students are present? That's, you know, they're doing something. And so trying to, you know, is our overall plan will be to increase signage, to be very clear about when there's community access and when there's school access, and to manage those.
Can we
two.
pull up a red flag? It's not available now. A green flag, you can come use it. So people won't even park. And oh, the red flag's up. Never mind. I'll drive over Sarzani.
You know, I will also say sometimes it works out. You know, right now, John, my 7th grader, is playing flag football. There are like 45 kids doing that. The other day, they also had the soccer kids from Attila doing that. The girls from lacrosse all started arriving, and it was just awesome. I mean, there was no conflict. Nobody was worried. People just moved around. It was great. So
That's great.
Well, and I do just want to give a plug. I do really agree with you, Kevin, and appreciate having the community access. I think it's important for our schools to have the community on our campuses so they feel welcome and see what's going on. I think it's good.
Thank you. Adoption of the consent calendar. Do we have a motion? Or any questions?
I'll move to approve. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
4-0. Moving on to 7.2, curriculum and instruction, San Antonio update. I'm really looking forward to this.
So this is again a work in progress, like all of our things at the moment this evening. I realize why I get confused because I have to share my screen on Zoom and then on Google Slides, it's slideshow, but not share. So share and then not share. I was like, why do we keep pressing that button? So we have been working really diligently, Dr. Knox and Tristan White, the principal, and the staff. We've been working really diligently on planning for the upcoming San Antonio transition to a TK-8 program. It will not be it won't have an 8th grade next year, but it will likely have a 6th, 7th grade students. Still working on the enrollment for that, but we're enrolling for 6th and 7th grade right now. So just an overview of our progress to date. We have visited Mupu, which is a TK-8 school, single school district in between here and Santa Paula. It is probably the most similar campus to San Antonio. It's lovely. It's just got a really great feel to it and is very similar. We also went to Ventura Charter School and we took staff members with us. And then the staff will actually be going back to visit Mupu, the staff who didn't attend the first time and would like to go. So looking at other programs that are kind of similarly sized in the county. We've been having bi-weekly staff meetings to discuss the school restructure. They're optional, but I think every staff member has come to every one so far. They're excited because, again, our goal is not to just tack on 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, but it's to kind of restructure the school holistically. So we've been working on the selection of a school theme and name. Our next steps are professional development and curriculum selection for each of the LEADS programs, which I'll talk about in just a moment. Master schedule development. So there's a few options for master schedule that we can have. We can have kind of the traditional schedule like we have right now, where you have a kindergarten teacher and a 1st grade teacher, and if classes are small, you have combo classes. You can do a block schedule, which we saw at Mupu, where you have, maybe you have a teacher that does 5th grade English and 6th grade math and 7th grade social studies. And there's some block times and they rotate between those. You could do that at both the upper grades and even at some of the lower grades. And then there's an option of having a looping schedule where teachers say, for example, I have this teacher for 1st grade, and then the teacher moves with the students to 2nd grade. And so we'll be working with the staff and getting parent input at our town hall about what kind of schedule is appealing to the majority of people. And then also working on facilities. So for next year, we'll likely be in the facilities more or less as they are, and then we'll be working on expanding what that looks like, and we're working on some ideas. It probably can't happen this summer, but by the time we have 8th grade, we want to have a full facilities kind of master plan there. So after many meetings and hours, the school selected to be the San Antonio LEADS Academy. LEADS is Leadership, Empowerment, Art, Design Thinking, and Stewardship. So these will be components that are integrated throughout every grade in the entire school. I'll go over each of those in just a moment. The logo still has a little bit of tweaking to do, but it's getting closer and closer. This is developed, the PTO had some input into this as well as the staff, and it's kind of a modification of their current logo. So the Leads Academy leadership is really a focus on leadership and life skills. There's some really robust leadership curriculum out there that the staff is exploring at the moment to see what we might want to bring in
We had a
next year.
presentation today and I heard it was wonderful and everybody was really excited about it. It's a
Great.
leader in the curriculum.
That's a great curriculum.
Yeah, I know you guys do that at a couple of different schools in Ventura. So
What was it?
Leader in Me, which is a Franklin Covey program. And so the staff heard about that today. And I know Stutter went and visited a school in Ventura that's implementing the Leader in Me curriculum. And I think maybe some staff will also go visit to see what it's like in action. So empowerment is really about empowering our San Antonio students to have influence on decisions and embedded opportunities to lead and serve on campus. One of the things that we really liked at MUPU is there are, as you progress through different grade levels, there are different opportunities for you to engage. So for example, in 6th grade, you are in charge of certain things. And then in 7th grade, you do other things. And the 8th graders run the assemblies for the whole school, and they put on dances for the upper grades and things like that. And so really thinking through how we can have progressive opportunities for empowerment and student leadership on campus. We've talked a lot about buddies and how we might have, maybe in 4th grade, you have a kindergarten buddy so that by the time you get to 8th grade, your buddies in 4th grade, and then the 4th grade drops down and becomes, so kind of a rotating buddy system so that we're developing a culture on campus that is supportive, which is also part of our stewardship, right? That lens of interconnectedness. Art, having art as a focus, both performing arts and other kinds of art to be determined. Design thinking. I am very excited about design thinking. If you remember when the first summer, so the summer of 2019, I think that was when we did the Engage to Impact events in the community, and we had the movie at Sarzotti Park that was based on High Tech High, and it was really students doing collaborative project-based learning and then having a presentation at the end. So that's really kind of the crux of design thinking, and I have a little slide I'll show you in a moment. So working on how we can integrate design thinking, which is kind of an engineering model. So this is kind of STEM-ish, but the design thinking is a little bit more holistic. So working on some professional development and some design thinking activities in every grade level that have kind of a performance task at the end. And then stewardship is really about this lens of interconnectedness, both for students with the environment, with the school, and with themselves. So those are our core components. Here's a little piece about design thinking. So it's really about kind of finding a problem and then working through the problem solving process. And then you have a product at the end. And we think that's a really good, for a lot of kids, that's a really good process for them to go through, where they're solving a problem and then presenting their solution at the end. So that's where we are at the moment. Our next steps are to continue to meet with the staff to work on some of the professional development, to really look at our enrollment numbers, to determine the master schedule for next year, and then to really work with our teachers so that they're prepared to implement this next year.
Is the size of MUPU the same as we expect the size of San Antonio to be? And how does that compare to Sunset?
I'm not sure the size of Sunset, but MUPU's, they said that they get around 200 at the most, 180 to 200. So
Applications or students actually enrolled?
Actually enrolled.
Because the biggest we've had at San Antonio has been 170, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
When it was a K through 6.
Mm-hmm.
And remind me, what do we expect this 6 through 8 population to be in terms of number of kids?
Probably 30 to 60.
And has there been discussion on a lottery, how that would
We haven't gotten to the place where we need a lottery yet. I've done some research on other lottery and the ed code on lotteries, but because it's not relevant yet, we have not put a lot of effort into that. But we are already seeing families who are enrolling and who are excited to be here next year.
At what ages, do you know?
The younger ages, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They start out.
Which is okay to give ourselves time to build this program and to really implement these ideas throughout the entire grade span.
I'm excited about it. I think, we've been asked by the community a lot to offer different experiences and magnet schools, which this isn't technically, but it's kind of filling that request that people have had. Just a different possibility.
I think a lot of parents, Untitled is big for a middle school kid, especially if you're coming from one of our smaller schools, and like it's appealing for middle school families to have a smaller environment for kiddos.
For some, yeah.
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 They all are different,
Everyone-
right? So
Yeah.
it's
Kids ready, so ready for
good
that.
to have the options.
Right.
Bigger.
So it's nice to have options. I'm looking forward to it.
Is there anything else, Dr. Knox, you'd like to add?
No, I think you covered it.
Okay, 7.2.2 is course approval. Changes at Nordoff, Matilah, and Summit.
Would you guys like me to, this basic summary is included, but middle school is looking at revamping their elective offerings a bit, really trying to individualize the courses by semester so that kids have more options to take things that they're truly interested in. So for example, you can see the different art courses. Instead of just taking art, now you can take, drawing and cartooning as one trimester, but maybe you wouldn't like sculpture, for example, so you don't want that. So it's a way to help students get the courses that they want that are more in tune to their interest. And then as we go to Nordoff, you've heard us talk about the Digital Media Academy. This is coming from the latest SWP grant that we received. And then with Summit is looking at continuing to enhance what they can offer with A to G programming. When we first rolled out Summit School, the only way to take an A to G course was through Edgenuity. Since then, with Paul Harkins and Natasha Efros's background in history and English, we've brought A to G coursework in English and history. And now they have been working with our teachers at Nordoff to look at coursework in science. Let's see, so we've got 2 courses, which is the requirement that we currently have at Summit for graduation. I'm sorry, we have 3. Physics and biology, and then integrated science. And then the newest addition is another online curriculum, similar to Edgenuity, but different. Some of the staff members have really looked through UC Scout curriculum and think it's an alternative to Edgenuity that some of our students can use. It's a free program, and they did work with our staff at Nordoff to vet the coursework and to make sure it seems appropriate, aligned to Common Core curriculum. And so we're excited to bring these new options to our Summit students.
UC Scout is a program at least Ella has used, my junior, and really liked it.
It's great. Good to hear.
Does it integrate with campus?
I don't know that. Our Summit students haven't really been using much of Canvas, but that's a good question, especially if we ever want to use this as Nordoff curriculum.
I have one question. Can we do the visual toolbox at the adult education? Because I want to take that.
We'll let Alex Mejia know.
And the second, I'm just so proud of the work and the opportunities that that teachers are looking at, that administration is looking at to really make this more alive than it used to be. It's a little disappointed I didn't see a home ec for next year at Matilah. I know on and off students have been asking for that for a few years, so that might be something to keep our ears out in the future. I've heard it from kids often that, it's a little sewing, a little cooking, just budgeting and those kind of things that used to be taught in home ec. I don't know if there's a new word for it, but
A couple years ago, Mr. Onda was doing it with the 6th graders at Topa. It was, with an environmental bent. Like it was mend your clothes and keep using them rather than buying new clothes. And so he was teaching kids
Upcycling.
Well, right. And just mending your clothes, how to do that. And it sounded like there was a lot of interest. So
I did it when they were doing the tutorials at Matilah High. I did one on sewing a button on, and I had to turn kids away. It was like, I don't have room in the classroom for that many. I didn't have that many needles, but
I was going to say, Jane, I can show you how to do it. You told me. Oh, you were teaching. Sorry.
But that those kind of things you forget that you don't have the opportunities maybe that they used to have.
Well, and I just want to say how much I appreciate the thoughtfulness on these classes and how they really align with the offerings at Nordoff and being able to, seeing dance on here and the graphic
Digital
design
media.
and moving into graphic design.
We actually met our Matilah teacher, and Mr. Hansen met and did did a curriculum alignment meeting. And so we truly are trying to integrate pathways that begin in middle school or even earlier. So as we look at some of the work that's going on at Topa around the farm that we're planning, we want to make sure that work aligns to our work at Matilah and aligns to the work at Nordoff. And so we're really trying to be thoughtful about pathways rather than kind of standalone electives so that kids can really develop a more robust knowledge base as they go through the programs.
And I just think junior high is the perfect spot for exploring so many different types of classes. And so I'm happy to see a lot of variety.
Now, these are, it says new courses, but they're still like, I know just this year or last year, we added the drama. Is that still going to happen? And then music and still going to happen?
To a large degree, these depend on teachers, and we have some staffing at Matilah. We will have some staffing changes next year. And so these are the courses that we have proposed. As we have to hire some new teachers, and we have some teachers who may who've asked to switch, for example, subjects, we'll have to ensure that we have teachers to teach them. So, for example, we used to offer aerospace, and we have a makerspace class and drama. Those are things that really teachers have to be passionate about. And so at the middle school, we are trying to both have pathways and have teachers who are passionate about teaching that particular program and skilled in teaching that particular program. And so there may be, these are our classes that are here. Will they all be offered next year? I'm not sure. It'll depend a little bit on how that staffing goes up. And the reason, by the way, we're going to have some shift at Matilah and staffing is because 2 of our middle school teachers have been selected to be TOSAs. If you remember, in our educator effectiveness plan, we have 2 TOSAs for 2 years to provide coaching at the secondary. And so 2 of those will be our internal hires from Matilah. And so we'll be backfilling their positions. And so to be determined on what those teachers will want in terms of their electives.
Who are the teachers?
Well, we haven't announced it yet. So
I have 2 questions.
Coming out soon.
One, just to clarify to Jane's point. So your expectation is to offer all of the classes that are listed here, but not sure about the pre-existing classes, or even the classes listed here. This is sort of a wish list, but they may not all be offered.
This is what we have available right now for students to enroll. So there's always kind of a timing issue where we go out. You saw our 5th grade visit, right, where we're putting classes out there. But then at Mantillaha, particularly this year, we have some changes. And so we had to put the classes out there before we know who all of the teachers are going to be, before we're fully staffed. And so I'm not sure if all of these will be available in even some of our current classes may have some shifts depending once we look at who's on campus.
Right. But these are just the new classes.
These
So
are the new
some of
classes.
the current existing classes still will exist.
Right, they're not going away.
Yes, right.
Except, for example, art, instead of just calling it art, it'll be
Right,
broken down into more
And
specifics.
aerospace we lost because
We lost.
it's gone.
Mhm, exactly.
Yeah.
So, we want these approved and ready so that we can offer them, and then it will depend on two things: registration, where students show interest. So if there's no interest for dance next year, for example, we may not offer that one. But then also the teacher. Do we have a teacher who is willing and able and has expertise in dance? So.
Capstone is really interesting. I mean,
Yeah.
who's teaching that, or do we
To be
know?
determined.
Yeah, because that's a really interesting class.
Yeah.
You'd want a really interesting teacher.
Mhm. Mrs. Stone actually wanted to teach it this year, and we told her we needed her to be the principal for this trimester. But she wrote this and is very excited about this particular class. Just so you know, on the back end, we can't register students into classes until you approve them, and then they can be entered into our student information system, and we can start with enrollment. So there's kind of an order of operations. And so this is step one. So some of those things about enrollment, we don't know until we can put them into queue, and then we can enroll kids into the classes. So that's why they come to you. We don't have all of the enrollment details yet.
Well, it's exciting. I think it's a good, robust offering, which I have to honestly say, we haven't always had. And I'm talking several years back, but I do remember looking over offerings with my kids in the past. And I'm glad to see so many choices.
We do
Are
ask
you making a
kids.
motion?
I will make a motion.
I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
None opposed. That passes 4-0. Adult education graduation requirements. I think we've kind of talked about this a little bit and had updates. Do we need a discussion on it? Is there questions?
We have Alex Mejia with us online tonight, I believe. I saw, there you are. And let me spotlight you. We have a brief presentation if you would like, or if you do not need it, then you don't have to.
Oh, sure. If we've got one.
Do
I
have
think it's
one.
helpful for the public.
Yeah.
So let me
Hi, Alex.
bring that up. for
Hi,
you.
everybody.
Hello, Alex.
Okay, hi, everyone. Thank you for having me this evening. It'll be quick. You want to move to the next slide, please, Tiffany? Okay, so you can look here, kind of this explains the process that we went through. When I first took on the role as principal for the Ojai Adult School, we quickly noticed that we had 2 graduation requirements based on age. So that led us to start asking and looking, and we conferred with staff members of Ventura County Consortium and Javier Ramirez, all who are involved with or people who had been involved with adult education, to help discern the rationale behind having the 2 different tracks. What we learned is that we all agreed that there isn't really any reason for having 2 separate tracks. So we decided to put together a committee to gather input and to work together to come up with a proposal. Okay, you can go to the next slide. Okay, so these are our current high school graduation requirements. The courses that are written in red, those are what we are proposing we adjust. Okay, so if you notice on there, it says not applicable. The PE is not applicable if you're 22 years or older. Then you could go to the next slide.
But if you're Under 22, trying to complete your high school diploma in adult education, you have to take 20 units of PE. Our adult education facility doesn't have really a mechanism. We don't have a gym per se. We don't have a mechanism for PE participation on the school campus. Like all of the other requirements you could meet here, but the PE requirement.
Right, that's correct. So if you're 22 years and older, you don't have to do that PE requirement. But if you're 18 to 21, you did have to meet that PE requirement. So this is what we're recommending. And basically we agreed to still include the PE, but as an elective, and remove it as a requirement for earning a high school diploma, since it isn't a requirement by anyone for adults to have PE as a part of a requirement for earning that high school diploma. We also agreed that to remove barriers, we wanted to allow and include extra coursework and work experience to count for credits under that elective requirement. So if you notice, the total credits is still 145, like it was on the other side for the 22 years and older, but now that would just be the same requirement for anyone that would be in the Ojai adult school. Does anyone have any questions on that?
I love the idea of work experience counting also. That's a great idea.
Yeah, so that's it. That's our proposal. And, if the board agrees, then we would like to move forward.
So did I miss anything else? The only change is the PE credit?
And really have
international students. Right. Which makes a lot of sense. I hate to see PE trip somebody up from their high school diploma, especially when we don't really have facilities to offer it.
That's right.
Any other questions?
I'll move to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Rebecca and seconded by Shelley. All those in favor?
Aye.
That passes 4-0. Thank you,
Thanks,
Alex.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
You too.
Thank you.
We are on 7.2.4, our resolution in recognition of California Teacher Appreciation Week, May 2nd through 6th, and the Day of the Teacher on May 11th. Please let those resolutions. Any particular point? I have my screen in the wrong thing. Sometimes it's fun to read off a line. Can't get out of there.
Yeah, I have it up.
Anything in particular? Last year, of course, we had all sorts of recognition for all the hard work during COVID. Not that teachers aren't still doing all that hard work, but luckily we are mostly all in the classroom. And that's with the SAC students we were even talking about. That's not everywhere that they've had the whole year back in school. So I really appreciate that from our teachers. And I know our PTAs are really supportive of our Teacher Appreciation Weeks and our Day of the Teacher. So just want to recognize each and every teacher in our district who contributes to the quality of the education that we're giving. So I'll actually move to approve that resolution. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That passes 4-0. The next resolution in recognition of Classified School Employee Week, which is May 15 through 21. And as Chuck pointed out, everyone's doing extra duty, and there's a lot of things that, for somebody who's on the outside, I don't think they recognize all the things that go on that are just above and beyond what you normally think of, and how things change. We've been pretty lucky this year that it hasn't been like the year before, where it's this way one week and it's this way the other week in terms of what's required. We're happy that our schools have maintained in person, and our staff has helped us, maintain cleanliness and happy campuses, and, staff that's there for libraries and front desks and all that. So that's again, this year, extra special.
I would love to add to that. I feel like like, I love our teachers too. I was a teacher. I love the teachers. I love our classified. I feel like it's really great that we're recognizing them in our board meeting because they don't necessarily always get the recognition they deserve, but it's like the backbone of our school is our classified staff that allows us to do the great work as teachers. And without great custodians and grounds and like all of these things that we're talking about tonight don't happen. And so I really want to thank them. And I know, you know, it's been a tremendously difficult year and we've done a lot of improvements and a lot of things have changed. But the hard work and dedication of people in Ojai, you can see it everywhere. Just look at our campuses. So thank you.
Agreed, eloquently stated. Thank you.
Have a motion to approve?
I'll move this. Oh, go ahead.
Second.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
That passes 4-0. Thank you all for your hard work. A through G completion improvement plan. For our first reading.
So I can present. Marilyn was the key author of this, but she's not here tonight. This is, you know, the years of lots of little plans, right? So we have received yet another grant for $136,991 to be spent on helping students access and complete A to G coursework. And so we were able to, you know, immediately determine that we do have students that as they enter our high school, they fail even their first year. They don't have the prerequisite skills to pass their coursework. And so while we offer a lot at Nordhoff to retake courses, do summer school, and you can see the list here of the current things that we do in order to encourage more students to accomplish A to G, we realized that some kids need support with prerequisite skills, both at Nordhoff and at Matilaha, in order to be ready to successfully master and pass coursework that is A to G that they start when they're freshmen. So we were able to receive a presentation from a reading intervention program called Reading Horizons, the secondary team, myself, Dr. Morse, and it was really a great program. I have seen a lot of high school reading intervention programs, and I think that most of them really missed the mark. I actually, 20 years ago when I worked at Nordhoff, taught a reading intervention program. A lot of them are computerized, and that's, you know, meant for efficiency and easy access, but it doesn't have that personal touch of a teacher per se. I mean, yes, there's a teacher monitoring and supporting, but it doesn't have that interactive piece, especially like what you see in our younger years where we're using the Sunday system, and it's very interactive. And so what I liked about this presentation is it had both. Students do online work, but then there are very active components where students are up, they're at a board, they're drawing, they're spelling, they're interacting with the teacher in a really hands-on kind of way as part of the session. And so that was, I think, really exciting to all of us. So we're excited to use this grant money to train our teachers, purchase the program, and then offer 2 sections of it, one at the middle school and one at the high school. To me, it's a little bit like when we got CSI money several years back, and we did the Sunday system at Miners Oaks only, and then we realized how amazing it was, and then we were able to expand it to our other elementary schools. So I see this as seed money to pilot this program, see how it goes. For now, we're excited about it, so we're hoping it goes well.
Because we currently at the high school don't have a reading intervention program. So if you get to the high school and you are lacking some foundational literacy skills, we do not have a robust method to help catch you up so that you can access the deep academic content that you would have. And so we really want to so we can think about this in terms of like our tier 3 intervention, like this is for our most neediest students who are really missing some of those core skills to get them kind of at reading at grade level. And as we have our students progress through the Sunday system, we think we may have less need for this
less and less,
potentially. But for right now, we really want to have a program that's at the middle school and high school that's connected with teachers who are teaching the same content, who can go to trainings together, really support each other as they develop this secondary foundational literacy program.
And so in addition to that, as sort of one piece for spending the money, we'd also like to purchase an online tutoring service that our secondary students can access at all hours of the day. They're at home doing homework, they'd be able to get immediate access to teaching staff to help them. You know, we see that as a benefit to all students who are in middle school, and then especially the high schoolers who are currently taking A to G classes, maybe struggling in them. If they have daily immediate access to get support, we do think that that would help us increase the amount of students who meet A to G requirements.
We are concerned about purchasing a program that for all students. If you think about the literacy is really targeted, and then the tutoring is broad. And sometimes you purchase programs that and have access, and they're not widely used, but we're also simultaneously looking at the schedule for next year at Nordhoff and having a built-in intervention time for all students, where they would have access to either enrichment or they could access this paper tutoring program during that intervention time, where they can do homework, they can do assignments, they can do this work on paper. And the other thing that we really like about paper is you can submit writing assignments and get feedback on them within 24 hours. So not a grade, but really robust feedback. And we know that one of the most impactful instructional strategies that the educational literature shows us is robust immediate feedback. And so we really like that piece for writing. So, you know, it's for teachers, it's hard to say, gosh, we want kids to turn in an assignment, you give them feedback, and then they turn it in and you grade it again. I do that in my doctorate class, and it's a lot of work, and I only have, 20 kids, but 20 adults. They're like other superintendents. They're not kids. I don't know. Learners. Yeah. So we want to make sure that we think that's a really good use of this, is to really get students able to get feedback on their writing in that timely way, and then to be able to turn it into their teacher for grading. And I
think, like you said, the fact that we can use it during the school day when students are in classrooms, teachers can be encouraging students to use that feature, for example, before they turn in their essays, or if it's a study hall period and you've got lots of students working on lots of different assignments. A teacher can't spread themselves too thin, helping everybody, but they can be using the tutoring service while they're sitting in that classroom. So.
We checked with a couple of other districts that utilize both of these programs. One of the things that we really want to do is we hear the presentation from the vendors, but then we also do a secondary check-in with our colleagues to make sure that it's something that they utilize. And we did look at some other options in addition to paper, and this was really the one that had the best feedback across the board from our other districts.
Well, it's interesting because, we've talked about increasing the A to G offerings and trying to encourage more students to be available, have achievement to attend college. And I know that when my kids were younger, a few years ago, there was a big push for, first family member going to college. But one of the things they found is that you can't just, we're admitting them. You actually have to support them. And so it took a couple of years to sort of catch up with not just letting them come and then fail, but supporting them when they come in. And this is kind of so more A to G student enrollment. You have to make sure that they're ready for that kind of a class. So that's exciting. I noticed this says first reading. Does that mean we should have opening a public comment?
It's not a public hearing, but we are required to bring it twice. So this is just for your feedback. If you have anything that you'd like us to look at or change, then we will bring it back again in May for the final approval before we submit the plan.
I have one question. Have we looked at the percentage rate and seen what's the biggest barrier for students in completing A to G?
We have done a little analysis. Previously, when I've looked, it's foreign language. That is one of the barriers for students to complete A to G. Yeah. The other barrier is just almost all of our coursework is A to G. So students take A to G courses as they enroll as freshmen. So the other piece is just students who repeatedly fail coursework. Those are sort of our two barriers.
We do
Okay.
have some courses some elective courses that we're still working on A to G approval and status. So this year, that's being done, I believe, there are some courses that we're rewriting. If you remember, we just redid our course sequence in science because we had some barriers there. So there's some structural pieces that we're also addressing separately that don't require funding, but that are like the schedule and course.
That's great. Do the majority of students that are entering ninth grade, are they put into an E to G approved math course?
Yes.
Yes.
That's great. Ready? Yeah.
Yes.
And is the success rate on that math course is?
I don't have the exact rate, but
For next time?
I would say that math is a barrier.
It is usually a lot.
Exactly.
So that leads me to do we have a plan to overcome the math barrier that often blocks students from completing?
That's a good point. I think, obviously paper hopefully will be helpful to students in math courses, but as far as something like Reading Horizons, but a math program, I don't believe that we've looked into that very thoroughly. We could.
Okay. That'd be great.
And so paper does multiple
Subjects.
Thank you.
Everything. It's actually a really amazing program.
Is it?
It's a 24/7 online tutoring program with live people. You could submit your paper and they'll come back and give you
Well,
all
I
the
keep hearing
feedback.
paper, which makes me think
But then they
English,
have,
but I'm like, Spanish help?
Yeah, all
Or-
subjects.
And you can
That's great.
choose your language and they will respond in your language of choice.
wow.
It's a really awesome program when it's utilized correctly. And so having it being used in class is probably the best thing I think you could do to get
And
students into it.
So it makes me wonder if teachers will be trained in how to use it and incorporate it into classrooms.
It's not really a training for teachers, but as we're working on the schedule for next year and we're looking at what intervention looks like, this is part of that discussion and part of the building that. But we're just in the collaborative decision-making process for next year's schedule with our staff. And so we're not quite there yet, but that's part of the discussion is what does the master schedule look like? And then after that will come, how
My
do we
fear is
integrate?
that we have this great program and then students who need it don't use it because they don't necessarily know about it or know how to use it or know.
I think familiarity with the program will be the biggest key thing to help make sure they utilize it. So if the more we're using it during the school day, or at least encouraging them to use it, they'll get that familiarity so that they're more willing to use it in the home setting.
But as we know, a lot of high schoolers like to do their homework at midnight or 1 a.m. and they can actually get help at that point in time, which is awesome because that's when their little brains wake up sometimes.
I also asked students about this, my student advisory committee, what they thought about this. And they were very excited to have this so we had a robust discussion about intervention and what kind of intervention would be most useful for them. Again, because there's the targeted and the broad so we want something that broadly works for the most students. And they really liked this idea of being able to have not just like right now we have, peer tutoring, but only during certain times. And then maybe I think I get it and I go home and I don't have anyone to help me. And so they really liked this concept.
Well, and so
you can also chat with somebody. If you don't get something, you can you're basically just chatting back and forth, and it's such a useful program.
I wonder if it would be helpful to have some strategic key students out there who are familiar with it and know it. And because it seems like there's certain students who get the midnight text, hey, what did you do on this? And, kids teach each other the tools that are used, I guess is my point. And I wonder if we have a pilot with some students and then
that's a great idea.
As we will.
Intellectual influencers.
Some intellectual influencers. Yeah.
It's a great idea.
Yeah.
And I think you can also put a link, if you're still using Canvas for all your classes or even as a repository, you can put a link on Canvas to paper, which is really nice too, because it's right there. So they don't go, I don't know where it is. It's a good program.
And just out of curiosity, can you, have your college siblings submit papers?
No.
Is it, oh, you guys are gonna bring it back.
Yeah, so this is
Any
just,
other feedback?
and I would say to your question about math, Rebecca, we did have some discussions about, for our targeted work, what's most effective. And what we realize is you can't access the math curriculum if you don't have foundational literacy skills. And so, there's always this push and pull between like, do we focus on math? Do we focus on literacy? And for this particular one, we felt like if we want you to access the full A to G curriculum, even if you don't complete all A to G classes, but if we want you to be successful in your history classes and in your science classes, that focusing on literacy would give you more access to being able to take those classes, whereas math is going to help you primarily in your math classes. So with more funding, we'd be happy to
I know
to
your
add math
funding
as well.
is very limited on this one, but I just think that, I keep seeing math is such a huge barrier to a lot of kids to complete AG. And if you get a D in any of your math classes in the 4 years you're in high school, you're no longer AG eligible.
But papers also works for math.
It does. It helps math, but I think
It's not a program for math. It's
Right.
just to get tutoring and help.
Tutoring,
You're
yeah.
stuck slightly.
It's sort of that tier 2, as we mentioned,
Right.
as opposed to tier 3, which is really working on sort of foundational
Right.
pieces of math.
Great. 7.3.1, Measure J and Measure K project updates. We actually have you guys here.
Yeah, it's exciting. And we have to
Live
fix
and in
these
person.
Before we turn it over to solar. On the actual update, just a couple fun things as we gear up for the summer sprint, basically. We have, like 20 some odd projects or so potentially slated. Some of them will be done over the summer, some of them bigger. But some of the fun ones are obviously the field restorations over at Topa and Miners Oaks to kind of somewhat mimic Miramonte, which everybody seems to like, and the grass is greening up as promised. And the other exciting news is that the Tillahaw foyer and site work, the site work portion, all the drop off lanes and everything, we got final DSA approval on that.
Wow.
So that is good. So the May agenda and probably June 1st agenda will be jam packed full of approvals. So,
Those are already packed meetings.
yes, they'll be long meetings. And I guess the other exciting thing is we've done a couple meetings now with our newest COC, Citizens Oversight Committee. Both meetings went great, and we actually took them on a site tour on Monday. We started doing it a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Somebody came up with the idea of taking the COC around a couple campuses just to put eyes on some of the projects that we've done and some of the ones that we're going to do. And so it was nice actually taking them into the current Tillahaw gym foyer and just to showing them why we're doing what we're doing. Nobody disagreed with the scope of it. But yeah, so the couple of good meetings. Those are kind of the highlights as you guys saw everything else. Any questions for us about the update or any of the projects?
I have two. So the Topa playground and field, I thought there was some waiting on figuring out what the farm school sort of thing.
We're incorporating the farm into the plan. So we've had lots of meetings with
Yeah.
the folks working on the farm.
We
And
kind of have a good design now. So we're just waiting for the final docs to put it out to bid.
Okay. And then the tennis courts at Nordhoff, Geotech,
That was the G on Geotech is not supposed to be capitalized. It's not the name of a company. That was
okay.
my error.
Okay.
We're actually just doing Geotech surveys and site surveys.
Okay.
So they're doing the soil samples and everything.
Okay. Good, because I tried looking them up. I was like, I can't find this company.
That was a fat finger. So.
Okay. Good.
We got two things that went out to bid this week.
Yeah.
We've got the landscaping parking lot drop off zone at Tillahaw, and then we've got what's the other one? I did it.
The ADA upgrades.
ADA upgrades
portion of the library as part of the library refresh. There's a few ADA upgrades we have to do. So that's up to bid as well. Yeah, it'll be a busy couple of months.
Hope you took your vacation, Sam.
Yeah, exactly.
And we actually, part of our summer school planning always is around what campuses are available for summer school. So we decided not to have summer school at Matilaha in the middle of redoing the drop off. We thought that might be frustrating for people.
Right.
So our middle school summer school is at Nordhoff this year. And even there, we're kind of limiting it to some wings. So because we'll be doing some significant work on the F wing for the Digital Media Academy rooms. And so we're trying to put summer school where it's the least impacted by all of these projects. So
I thought it was worth mentioning too, the discussion earlier about community involvement in campuses and stuff. So a lot of the work that we're doing in the elementary schools now is to provide that sort of an area, play area for AYSO, baseball, things like that. Because the next summer, we're going to be doing a lot of work at Nordhoff, and some of the areas that are typically used for that are going to have to be dispersed to the elementary. So we want to have those ready to receive that load.
And as we're designing the fields, we've laid out, this is a specific size ball diamond, and this is how many 8U soccer fields or 6U soccer fields or 10U soccer fields could fit in this space, the turf space, with the community in mind.
and you may, for the community's sake, Adam is involved in both baseball and soccer. And so, so it's great when we have questions about the fields, or as he's working on with our designers, he's really got the user's eye in a way. And we just had some conversations about baseball drags and diamonds and fields. And it's great because there's really, by sitting on the board of those organizations, he's able to help make sure that we're designing them for their use in the future.
As you can imagine, Miramani was in high demand for this baseball season. So everybody's enjoying the new fields.
Along those lines, are we gonna have soccer next AYSO out at Nordhoff? And if so, should water them this summer.
Yeah, they look amazing right now.
Yeah.
And I was actually out there the other day thinking that exact same thing. I think we were up talking to Fender, and it was walking through, and the backfield looks incredible. We just need to maintain them.
Yeah.
Because the gear up for last soccer season was a little rough, but they look amazing right now. So, but yeah, that's the plan right now.
Yeah.
All right.
Great, thank you.
You guys.
Great. All right.
1.3.2, our solar project update.
Well, I'm excited to be here, because it is back in person, and it's not even 8 o'clock yet.
I was gonna do a bit when you guys walked in, but it would have been inappropriate to go like, so the solar thing, it's dead.
I would have walked out.
So. We've made quite a bit of progress on the solar design portion of the things we've already approved. And we're at a point now where we have some preliminary cost information. We have some preliminary design work as far as the 3 locations that we're doing. We've got some feedback on what we'll save and things like that. That's all going to be part of this presentation. But yeah, that's we're excited about it. So.
Just for the context, when the 75%, that's 75% of the design.
Roughly 70% of the design.
That's what we're talking about. We're talking about.
Correct. Yeah, they're like, and they have already, we together have already submitted to DSA this week on all of the site. Well, we submitted because now that gives us a 6-week time clock to finish all the plans and get them done. And because there's an appointment that's 6 weeks out now to meet with DSA and say, here's what we want to do and go through those plans. So the plans themselves aren't submitted, but some preliminary stuff has been done, paperwork to set that appointment out there. So we've got a deadline. So can I see that?
I can't see either, so.
Yeah, it's a problem with getting all my desks. All right, so we have it defined that we're looking at about 485 kW of power combined for the 3 sites for Nordhoff, Matilaha, and Topa. And we do have plans within that to include EV charging stations at the sites, particularly Nordhoff and Topa. Not sure about Matilaha at this point. There's some grant applications in process and to help with the EV charging stations. Just as on the next item, the battery storage, we do have a grant for $600,000 to help with the microgrid that we're putting in and the battery that we're putting in at Nordoff. So those are some exciting things. We're still not done with grants. We're still applying for a federal grant that's going to be, we anticipate this fall we'll be able to apply for some federal money. We're hoping, to get a large chunk of change there. I'm not going to speculate on what we might get, but.
And I can talk more to that as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of money out there, not on the federal side, but some other grants that we're pursuing. So Schneider has been really helpful in doing that. So that's kind of what I can tell you. If you have questions, then we're going to let the rest of the presentation be presented by the Schneider team.
Thanks, Alan.
Okay.
Well, good evening. It's really nice to be back and see everyone's face. And yes, we're here in person and we're so happy to be. So since we last presented, as Ellen mentioned, we've been working diligently with the OHI team, and it's been going great. We've had many meetings and we're excited. Tiffany's been involved in them as well. And it's progressed us to where we are today. And so we wanted to provide a board update, get your feedback, go over some of the scope in a little bit more detail, as well as some of the preliminary pricing that we have as well. So I'm going to have Robert and I will both go through the next few slides on scope and preliminary price. And then we'll dive into some of those grant opportunities, or refresher on what we've applied for, what we've submitted and received actually, and where we're at with those. And then the 4 additional that we will be applying for. And then we'll talk about some of the fun things that we're doing with the students and the OHI community as well. Robert, I'll let you.
Yeah, so at Nordoff, we're putting in about 345 kilowatts of solar production. I think that's the number. I thought we had on the slide, we don't. But effectively, that is going to offset about 90% of the energy consumption at Nordoff High School. We're putting in the battery that'll be subsidized by the self-generation incentive program, the $600,000 grant that Alan was talking about. That battery will have the ability to go do load shedding and demand management in order to reduce your overall utility costs. Then it also has the really huge benefit of being able to provide power to the gymnasium and kitchen area when you don't have grid power. So in the event of an outage, it will create a microgrid and be able to start up and maintain power there. We've got 6 EV charging stations that we're going to put in. They're going to be kind of off to the side. We were having a lot of debate about where exactly in the parking lot to put them, because the solar in the parking lot is going to provide covered shaded parking for everyone. Well, you either get to park in the shade or you get to park with your electric vehicle. So we've got it kind of off to the side there. There certainly has to be some ADA accommodations to work with that. So we've got some concrete work to do to make sure that that's all going to be okay and suitable. In the array sections, it's going to be in 2 pieces, one right along the street and one a little bit closer to the building. A little bit of accommodation there as well for ADA work, a little bit of restriping that has to be done to make sure that it's safe, but there's no issues with anybody driving by and bumping into the cars or anything like that. We got a little curb work that we have to do as well. The battery, if you're excited about the technical details like I am, I'm sure you all are. It's a 250 kilowatt battery. It will supply power in the event of a grid outage. If that battery is full, pretty much no matter what time of year it is, you'll be able to run that gymnasium and kitchen for weeks on end, really. The solar will be able to recharge the battery and you'll be able to have that operational. If the battery is depleted, you have less availability. So there's always going to be this balancing act that you'll have to do. There's controls to make this work, but effectively you have the ability to manage your utility costs and keep enough in supply in the background. So in the event of an outage, you can go make it till the next day where the solar can replenish the battery and be back to normal for what we call.
That control that you talked about, is that's local control? That's the school district's control?
Yeah, so there's a complicated device called an energy control center, but there's a really easy user interface that allows you to sort of say, we only want the battery to discharge down to this amount, 25%, 30%, and keep the remaining amount in reserve. And, easily managed, simple user interface on site in person.
One of the reasons this is important is because when we have a power outage, one of the big costs to us is when we lose food from our freezers. which has happened multiple times. And so this gives us the ability to ensure that our food is able to be safely stored and not wasted.
Adam just reminded me that we will be the first school district in California to put in a microgrid like this. So, like-
Just recently
like
in
cutting
the
edge.
VC Start, I think. Yeah.
So we're going to DSA for the over-the-counter review at the Noroff site on May the 10th. We're expecting $115,000 in savings here. Now it's 90% of the consumption at the site. It's only 72% of the utility costs. Not going too far into details on consumption and demand components of utility billing, but effectively you can't save 100% of your costs without an inordinate amount of cost. It just doesn't make sense to do. You can drop your consumption charges down to nearly zero, which is what we're doing here, but you still have the demand piece because you're connected to the grid, right? You have the utility supply power, and it's there.
So when you do these calculations, I know I may have solar on my home, and the big thing was, how much is it costing me and how much am I saving? So if I'm paying for this over 25 years, am I really saving anything? I mean, there's always the good part of I am saving, emissions because I'm using solar, but how, so what is when you look at that sort of like, where's the balance?
Yeah, so we're expecting about $115,000 a year in utility savings first year. But the first year, that's a great point, which will escalate with inflation, with utility cost increases. The value of that only improves over time. Upfront costs, we are still trying to nail down the exact numbers. Our estimate at this point is between $2.5 and $2.9 million. So it'll certainly more than pay for itself on the solar side over the life of that system.
And when we're talking about the cost estimate too, we're not just talking about the solar. So we talked about all the other things we're doing at the site particularly. So that includes things that don't generate energy, like the EV in the parking lots and things like that. So that is what that numbers represents, not just the solar. So take that into consideration too when you're seeing your savings.
And also the savings is all in our general fund, whereas the expense is all in our bond.
Exactly.
So.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, it's a project. I think one of the few that you are making money off of a project that is Measure K, or not making money, but
reaping benefit.
Reaping benefit. That's better.
So Matilaha, smaller array. This was not the parking lot. It's over the bleachers. It's a 90 kilowatt structure. It'll also offset about between 85 and 90%. We had to optimize for. There's no point in adding an extra column. All the steel work and all the stuff that's associated with that, in exchange for 2% more production. So we really had an interesting optimization exercise. One of the great things that we're doing there is we'll be making the bleachers, the stadium seating there, ADA compliant. Right now, there's not an ADA pathway to get to that, and there's no place for a handicapped person to sit. So we'll be adding 8 ADA seats and 8, it's a mouthful, 8 companion seats with it. So there'll be a nice flat surface for folks to be able to use for that purpose at the back of the array and the pathway to get there.
We don't have a diagram of, I'm trying to imagine Matilaha.
Yeah, I was thinking that as we were kind of talking about this. I can send, I know that you have some of the renderings.
I can send that.
I'm just wondering, because I think of Matilaha as having a lot of shade in the current parking lot, right?
Oh, this isn't in the parking lot. This is over the field.
That's
Oh,
where
I thought
there's
you said
no
parking
shade.
lot. Yeah,
Yes.
sorry.
There are ADA spaces that the parking spots are in the parking lot. The solar array is over the field.
Got it.
So.
Smart.
The bleachers.
Smart.
And so at the back of the bleachers, there will be a large platform for ADA people to participate in the field.
So awesome. We can go back to our noon graduation.
And actually, quite a bit of discussion about the location, the exact location of shade structures, because it might have been easier to put the shade structures at the top of the bleachers, but then they're covering half of the volleyball court and very little of the bleachers. Said, no, we have to get down where we're covering just the bleachers with the shade. We've got
a bunch of
shade studies of throughout the year. Where does the shade land at what time of day, and lots of things like that.
There was much discussion around this.
So there'll be 530 covered shaded seats in the bleachers out there, which we're excited about. This one is not an over-the-counter review with DSA because of the all the ADA work that needs to happen is a little bit more nuanced, and there's some drainage stuff that has to go along with that. So that can't be the quick, easy review. That's going in front of them on May 20th. But we're really excited about it. We think we have a really good design that accomplishes all the solar goals and provides a bunch of great things for that seating area as well.
And we're hopeful that because of the solar array itself and the structure that holds that up is PC, the rest of it will probably go a little quicker.
Now, students can go over there and sit under there and have lunch, right?
Yes, and I actually do have the rendering. I just have to figure out how to get it from my iPad to here without stopping the presentation. I'll pull it up in a moment.
Okay.
I was going to mention the cost savings of this one are slightly lower percentage of the utility bill than they are at Nordhoff, and that's because at Nordhoff you have the battery, which can help you manage the demand portion of your costs in a much more impactful way. Whereas without the battery, you aren't able to manage that piece of this.
Pass it around.
I'll wait a second. We can pause.
We're saving electricity.
These are this is the rendering of the field, and I'll show you when we get to Topa Topa.
Oh, wow, that's great.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Okay. Can I show?
That's really low tech.
We'll add it to this
Yeah, we
presentation
need to
that's
let the
posted
public
online.
know. This is what we have been begging for, well, since I've been on the board. I guess I'm assuming others have begged for shade on those bleachers.
It'll make the June graduations a lot nicer.
Well, and the PE classes, the PE kids would sit out there and roast.
And parents watching soccer and
Yeah.
flag football.
We just talked about all the sports that are
All
happening on the
those.
fields. We
Yeah.
now have shade for spectators.
Yeah.
And again, an ADA accessible. We know we have some students coming up to Matilah where ADA access is really
Gotta show it
important.
to Cheryl.
Yeah.
Well,
So
I have
we're-
to say, Shelley, Alan and Adam are definitely listening because they fought for this, and I think it's a great addition to the project. It sounds like everyone's really excited, so you should.
Good job, guys.
Get some credit to these.
It's a health issue.
Do
I
have the
mean,
other
I
schools on
can't
it.
tell you how many kids I would see completely sunburned from sitting out at PE class.
Yeah. Any additional questions on Matilah? I think we mentioned the cost estimate and the first year savings.
And then we have Topa Topa, which is about a 50 theater system here. It's taking advantage of the electrical upgrades that were already done in the parking lot. At Topa Topa, we'll have 2 EV chargers in the lot. So the solar array will be on the west side of the parking lot and cover an ADA space or 2. And effectively, we'll have some EV charging just to the east of that. In the parking lot, though, one of the big things we'll be doing is, resurfacing and restriping the parking lot as well. Because, there's been a little bit of damage over the years. It's time for the asphalt to get smoothed out and in good shape.
And I want to mention on that we worked with the transportation department, with the school itself, and the principal Don, and her staff. We're going to change the traffic flow the plan is to change the traffic flow at Topa Topa so that it'll all be one way in and one way out, similar to what we did at Nordhoff. In addition to that, we worked with the city to make sure they're okay with us changing the structure of the sidewalk. Currently there was a parking lot at the west end of that there, where we did all the electrical work. And that's going to be the new bus drop-off zone, and we'll create a little gathering area right there so that kids can get dropped off by the bus right there. One crossing guard can see everything that's happening. We don't need a second crossing guard. And so that plan was approved by everybody. They all liked it. And so that's going to be part of the work, that extra parking lot zone and the curb work is part of what they're going to be doing.
That loses a lot of parking spots, though.
There's 8 parking spots there. We have a plethora of parking spots at Topa Topa.
I don't know. When I was a parent, people are parking down the street to go get there.
There's fewer students now, so I'm sure that's affected.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, we're talking about that little area by the kindergarten, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
Right.
In front of kindergarten.
Yeah.
Which we had actually blocked off recently for bus drop off anyway, so it hasn't. And then we were having construction there, and so it's not been a widely used.
This
area for a
project
while.
looks less, it's almost not worth the savings, it looks like.
So a big portion of the cost here are the resurfacing of the parking lot, which is needed. That's not really, solar, but it's an important upgrade. And then we're going to need to restripe a lot to ensure the ADA compatibility. As I'm sure you know, the ADA details are nuanced and flyweight is, frustrating. There we go. And so it makes it really difficult to make this sort of stuff work in the parking lot with the angled parking that you have there. There's just not quite enough space to allow all the vehicles to pass through in an effective way. So there's a little bit of restriping work that has to be done to do all that, which adds. And then of course we're changing, the other thing, we're changing the direction of travel in the southern drive aisle in the parking lot as well, which has there's like these zigzag curbs at the bottom. There's a lot of concrete and asphalt repair work that'll have to be done to fully accommodate that sort of change. And then you've got the EV charging in here. So yeah, if this were all solar, I would agree, but there's a bunch of other necessary improvements that incorporated at the same time.
Is there any way to get a little sense of the,
Offset just with solar?
yeah, I mean, just sort of say, well, the solar really is costing 800,000 and the other is costing 200,000.
I think we can break that down for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
It doesn't have to be exact, but just a sense of, are we?
That's a fair question. I think we can break it down.
And then this one, we're going to DSA on May 10th, just like with Nora.
I think ignore that highlighted portion on there, if I can read that correctly. So just as project progress, we're down here at April 13th, excuse me, I'm fast forwarding. But we did have a 75% design plan review with the district in March. And Linda put out a press release in the VC Star, which I actually got a lot of traction, it got a lot of traction, which is very exciting. We've had some other districts locally comment, hey, you're doing this over at Ojai. Why haven't we had these conversations? So you're definitely setting a standard and definitely a lot of good reviews there. So great job.
Linda, could you share that article with the board?
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. I don't
It
think
ran on several news.
I think, yeah, and we'll have, yes, which we can share that too. So there's gonna be a decent amount of press around this. And then we had some 8841 project review with the district recently as well on April 6th. And here we are tonight, April 13th. So the next few weeks will consist of submitting those DSA reviews, one on the 10th for the over-the-counter at Nordhoff and Topa Topa, and then the full package, as Robert said, on the 20th. And we have August of 2022 for project kickoff. I do want to put a little caveat, don't expect to see solar going up right at that time. I just want to set some expectations that when we say August, so we are going to be starting with the items that we can start with in the parking lot, items like that where we're not waiting on long lead times, for solar panels, batteries right now. So it will be kind of a phased approach that you'll see, but we are going to be able to start some of that construction in August.
That comment was about supply chain and all the stuff that we're hearing about that you're just.
We got some extra long lead times and we're paying attention to those. And we've had some conversations as early as this morning, just about making sure that we have the panels secured, in which we will. So that will help with the progress of this project. But yes, right now, almost everything is affected, on the mechanical side, solar side, batteries. So we've definitely been done our due diligence, and we're trying to get ahead of that. But I just want to set that precedence that you won't see solar just automatically going up right in August, but we are going to be starting.
So the physical specs in terms of the actual equipment has not been decided, I assume, or has it?
It has.
Okay. And that's not in here though, right?
No, well, it's in those, it's in the drawings.
It's baked into the amounts, right?
Yes.
I remember when you guys, because I was effectively the only board member that you guys, we had to split off kind of conversations. And I remember you guys saying you guys have some proprietary equipment, but you actually use equipment from other third parties because you think maybe
Yeah, we're
Well,
vendor
yeah, because your
agnostic.
bosses might be watching, but
We are vendor agnostic through and through,
yes,
so it's.
yeah. So
conversation.
is that how it's ended up?
Yeah, so the pieces that are Schneider Electric product, that complicated controls thing, that's called the Energy Control Center for the battery. Schneider Electric is really good at that. I think it's a complicated, really technically complex piece of equipment to make sure that all is coordinated, working right. We're using Schneider Electric gear for that. Everything else is other stuff.
One of the things that we did talk about also, Kevin, is that the original plans were done and drawn with one set of solar panels in mind. That set of solar panels flaked out on them and it wasn't available. So they had to shift gears, redesign for a different size, slightly different size panel. And so what they're alluding to about the panel things, we've made arrangements to lock those in, say these are committed to us. And we're probably looking at a July, August availability for those panels by doing that lock-in. So we probably aren't going to be held up on panels to get installed, but we might still be held up on steel or some other components.
And when we talk about the microgrid, how is that just different than a solar system?
So in most solar systems, what ends up happening is when the grid power is down, so when SCE is not providing you power, solar doesn't operate. It won't generate anything. You can't use it. What the microgrid does is it allows you to, in the absence of grid power, effectively disconnect from the grid and then form your own little smaller power grid that's just the loads that you want to control. It allows you to stay on in the absence of grid power. There's a lot of complexity to make sure that that works because, as you can imagine, in the absence of power, you have to power all the controls that run this. So there's a lot of just moving parts in that. But that's what the microgrid does.
So the microgrid is Nordoff.
Right.
Yes.
The others are just traditional
And it's
systems.
because it's an evacuation center. So this is something that the community had been working on, asking about Fire Safe Council and some of the other groups that are working on. So when I first started and, we were kind of on the tail end of the Thomas fire and some of the other, the solar or the power outages, this was something that for Ojai in particular, the community was really wanted some microgrids. And so we were able to build that in and the grant came available for us to apply for that.
I think that's important. Sorry, it's kind of off the topic, but to point out, when people are talking about the parcel task and on top of the bonds, it's not just about what's happening in the schools, it's what's serving the community.
I want to point out, because I've been in all of these conversations too, that has been kind of echoed throughout almost everything that we have designed, and any scope item we've talked about isn't just, students, it's a community as a whole, it seems like. So I think Ojai does a really great job of looking at the big picture.
I have questions about the charging stations, the EV charging stations. I'm going to show my ignorance here, but how big of a vehicle can these charge? I'm thinking about our bus fleet and whether they would be appropriate for a school bus or more appropriate for our vans as we're needing to replace
vans, maintenance, tech vehicles. So that's part of the other work that we're doing. And it might even come up in this grant side as we're looking to, as we have to replace our fleet vehicles, we're looking for EV options, but the buses would not be charging.
These wouldn't be.
Right. You could use them to charge buses. They're not located somewhere that would be particularly convenient.
That's what I was wondering is.
And they'd be a little bit on the small side as well for the size battery, but for any of your white fleet vehicles, like work trucks, vans, that sort of thing, perfect for that.
Or for employee vehicles.
Pardon?
It could also be available
Absolutely, yes.
for employee vehicles.
Well, that's what I was kind of wondering, who is going to be using these? Is this something that we offer as a public service? Do people pay to use the EVs?
It can be structured to where like pay for the energy as you put a quarter in the slot kind of thing. More like credit cards, but yeah, so that they can be done that way. They could be offered as a benefit to employees. They could be for the district vehicles, all the above.
So we currently have employees who drive EVs to work, and there's no option for them to charge at the site. So they either have to run a cord out of a window, which we don't let them do anymore. Or they have to park at the skate park or at the Tesla, but we want to encourage our employees who commute here to Ojai to drive EVs, but we don't really have the back end mechanisms to provide for that. So those are like future discussions about what that looks like in terms of not pay employees, but they would not generally be available for like community charging stations during the day when staff is present.
Well, that's the question. I mean, the EVs that are out there today, the vehicles are, I mean, you can get from, Goleta, and it's not like I drove here and now I don't have any battery. So you can charge at home. But I would have more concern about, I live across the street from Topa Topa, so I'm just going to charge my car there every night.
So the current configuration design is that like you have an access card, right? And so what the mechanism is for getting an access card is open for a lot of discussion, but with that, you could then you would need to use that in order for the charger to be in effect.
And that's something we can discuss as these are actually built in, right?
But as we look at future cost savings, our moving to EV fleets will save a lot of money on maintenance as well for our tech and maintenance vehicles and our athletic vans and our transportation vans. So those are all things. Buses are a whole nother thing, which may make sense for some purposes and not all purposes. So there's some definite pros and cons to EV buses that we'll get into the future time.
To help you accomplish that too, to help you transfer your fleets and things. That's a different train on a different set of tracks, but.
Yeah. But if we don't have the stations in place.
Buy new buses, so it's
Right.
not like we're out there shopping for new buses again right now. So.
Yeah, but if we don't have the charging stations in place, then we can't change our fleets. And so it's, while we're doing this work, it makes sense to put in the stations so that over time we can replace our fleet.
Another question on the stations. It's hard to articulate this. Are they just incidental to the fact that we have a solar system, or are they actually somehow solar powered? In other words, do they just basically hook up to the power system and we happen to have solar? So you could argue that the solar is powering the.
Yeah. So, I mean, the reality is it's not as though the solar is directly connected to them. However, it's all coming from the same electrical bus, if you will, and it is, in a sense, it is being powered by solar. Then again, you could charge a vehicle at night.
Exactly, that's what I was thinking. So if we're not careful, we could end up with people charging their cars, a big draw over, nights, and that we find, wow, we're using a lot of electricity and we used to not use.
Which is the access card.
The access card, yeah.
Okay. Any additional questions on scooping before we move on to grants? All right, then I'm going to move forward. So this is just a quick refresher, and we kind of already talked through it a few times. But as a reminder, back in September, CalShape 8841 ventilation, the portal opened up, we applied, and we have been awarded. Again, the scope is filter replacements, CO2 monitors. We're talking about Pelican thermostats there as well, HVAC assessments, and then 20% contingency at each site applied for added HVAC or replacement. So the district was awarded $2,221. 200, sorry, yes. And currently, so all NOPA documents, the documents that the CEC required, have been submitted. We are just waiting on the 50% that is to be provided to the district up front. Currently, we are expecting to receive that around May or June, and then the other 50% upon project completion.
One of the sites one of the main sites is here at the district office. So really working on air conditioning, for example, at Chaparral, and in the main office where we don't have central HVAC at all.
And how is this under solar?
It's not, they helped us apply for the grant.
Okay.
I know this one was kind of brought up, but the microgrid resiliency SCHIP application. So just I'll provide a quick update, I guess, since we've talked about this. 600,000 was approved on the district's behalf. And we are currently in the design process there. We are looking at batteries that are on the approved SGIP list as well. I think you actually mentioned.
Yeah, it's a SILFAB 250 kW 4.
Look how excited he gets. And so, yes, so that is exciting and moving full force ahead, but we wanted to bring up 4 additional grant opportunities that we are either currently applying for in the process while waiting for the portals to open so that we can apply. We are readying the applications and keeping an eye out for a few as well. So one of which is that.
If you don't mind, since we all have these in front of, I don't know if we need to actually go through them, just pointing them out to us for the public and for everyone to have read, but if we could just go on to the next slide, unless there's something
definitely
specific that somebody.
I didn't know if there'd be any information in the grants in particular, just on timelines or anything like that. So feel free to ask any questions and we can move forward.
I think so. Thank you.
No problem. So Earth Day is officially on the 21st, but we will be working with the district on April 20th. For a full Earth Day event. The morning we will work with your students and that will be the 6th grade Matilaha students. And they are going to go through kind of a circuit of different activities that relate to Earth Day. One of which is solar car building. They'll learn to build these solar cars. We'll do kind of a bracket race off at the end with them. And that's been a big hit with students at other districts that we've done this. We will also have a resiliency, kind of a microgrid demonstration. They'll get to play around, learn about microgrids, what that means. They can fiddle with the device as well, but it will power a smoothie maker. So we will be making fresh smoothies out there and show them how that works. And then they will also be partaking in an upcycled garden. So we will be bringing in flowers and all of that. They will be bringing in some recyclable containers and building their own flower gardens. So that will happen in the morning. And then we will be working with the community later on in the day. We'll have a booth at the farmers market, which we're very excited about. We will also have a microgrid demonstration at the farmers market.
I'm going to put this in my calendar.
Please do. I would love to see you there.
I'm hoping that it's the 21st though, because
It is, yeah, the day was slightly off, but it is the 21st is
It says the
Thursday,
20th
Earth
on
Day
here.
is the 20th.
Okay, that's my fault. Excuse me.
You did just cause me to panic though and look it up.
I'm so sorry.
Because I was like, oh my gosh, we just made the flyers today and they said that I was
No,
gonna
I'm so
text Linda,
sorry.
like,
Okay.
wrong day.
This is
Okay,
the
the
calendar
21st.
to the point.
Okay.
21st, we can blame me on this one. So 21st, and we do hope you all come out. We will have recycled usable bags for farmers market shopping, which will have an every day is Earth Day in OHI logo and the OHI logo on the back as well, which I know Linda and the rest of the team put a lot of effort into. And then we will also additionally have one of your students at the booth with us as well. I know that we've kind of talked about this in the past, but we are working hand in hand with one of your high school students, Liam, and he has been learning a lot. He has an interest in energy and engineering down the road. And so we have been working one-on-one with him. He's been working with our energy engineers, learning about how to build helioscopes and put those together. So I know that's been a weekly activity lately. And so he will be at the booth and he can just kind of explain why he's interested, how he helps the planet on a day-to-day basis, and what he's been doing and learning about. So it will be wonderful to have him out there. And then I also think, you'll get some more press release out there as well. I don't know if you want me to share the good news or if you have, so I don't want to take your thunder on that one. But we're very excited to be out there and be working with OHI, both with the students and the community. And so appreciate you having us here tonight.
Great. Sounds like a fun day.
This sounds like a fun day.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions? Comments?
No,
Thank you.
I appreciate you guys answering all our questions.
So that is the end of our agenda, except for future agenda items.
No, it's not 8.
Michael did one that ended at 7:30. So
In May, when you're here at 10, just remember that we're plus 2 hours from today.
We owe you guys.
Right.
I don't want to be a downer, but I do have an agenda item that I think is really important, which is I would like us to look at our elementary music program, because I am very concerned that our music program in our district, which so long had been really one of the great elements of our district and was I think a recruiting tool, is, you know, I'm not going to say dying, but I think we're just not seeing the pipeline.
Okay.
I would love to have Bill Wagner come here. I would love to hear from Lily and Callie, from Halverson, you know, the people that have really been part of this great music program in this district, and see what we all can think about to address it.
Okay. I would like to figure out whether it's time, to kind of our 60 days from the end of the contract for the district property is complete. And I think maybe just kind of have a discussion about, do we want to hear from the public more? I mean, there are discussions that are happening outside of the district, and I would prefer them to be happening inside the district about what we think. Obviously the process started years ago. How do we feel about that process now? Do we want to, change our thoughts on this property? And, do we want to wait until a new board is on hand, just to kind of have a conversation, not with, supporting evidence and voting on something, but just a public conversation.
And I would like to have a conversation to begin looking at whether it's possible or not to have workforce housing at this district. I feel like we have a very difficult time recruiting employees to this district, and it's just getting harder. And so on top of knowing that we need to improve our salary schedule, I would like to see if it's possible to look at workforce housing, or what it would take, or whether we don't want to, but to have that conversation.
And where it would be.
And yeah, none of those things we would need to answer right away, but just to get the ball rolling and look at it, what it would.
I think that idea a lot too.
Great. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Good night. See you in May. How do I leave that here?
Yeah, we're just like, crap, we're done. Ventura does this whole long thing.
We send it today, yeah.
Just let me know.